detective. I'm something of a witch.
I'm your host today, Kiki, and in light of the fact that Wandavision is over, today I'm going to do a very special bonus episode. I will say this, there's instantly going to be spoilers for Wandavision, so please turn this off now if you have not watched the last episode of WandaVision or you haven't gotten caught up at all, because this is going to be talking about specifically things that happened in, I believe it's the 7th episode and then the last episode. And so I don't want to spoil that for anybody. So please finish watching WandaVision and then come on back and listen to my little take on specifically some of the magic that's used in WandaVision and whether or not Marvel did a good job or not. It's not I've given you enough time. If you haven't turned me off, that means you've finished watching it and you're ready to go, or you don't give a shit about spoilers, because sometimes I don't personally care either. So I decided to do this special little episode now that WandaVision is over, to talk to you guys about the sigil craft that was used by Marvel, especially in the sigils that were downstairs in Agatha's room, and then the 2 sigils that we see later on when Wanda uses that same magic for herself. A lot of this is speculation. There are only 2 that I feel are 100% what they are, and I will let you know which ones those are. And keep in mind that I'm doing this for fun. So the first one that I'm going to go over is actually the first one that a lot of people talked about in Agatha's basement, which is, it looks like a double M, which is 2 Awaz runes on top of each other. And it does look like you've got Isa in the center of that, which is just a straight line down. Now, Awaz represents a horse, but it can also be 2 horses, as if the 2 heads are looking at each other. And that can be a representation of what's called the divine twins. Now, that's kind of interesting, right? Because you've got them stacked one on top of each other. So this could be representative of 2 sets of twins here. And when you take Isa and stab that right down the middle, that is the rune of ice or restriction. And so that's a very interesting sigil that Marvel created for Agatha, almost saying like, I'm binding both sets of these twins, even though one of them is technically dead. And of course, we can't ignore the fact that the M is very prominent on Wanda's crown. And there's also the House of M story arc, which if you're a Marvel fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, go read House of M like right now. This is a combination of Laguz and Ingwaz that together are reminiscent of a protection sigil that heathens even use today, except in this case, it's been split apart, possibly for aesthetic reasons. Subsequently, Ingwaz is also associated with opening portals to other worlds. Interesting choice, Marvel. There's also a sigil that looks like a lowercase d that has 2 convex lines above it, one larger and then a smaller one. Now, the first thing I thought of when I saw this was that it's a stylized version of a patriarchal cross. If you're Catholic, you know what this is. This cross also happens to be associated with the Freemasons and is often referred to as the Salem Cross, although there's no connection to the Salem witch trials here in reality, but that could also be just a nod to the Salem 7, possibly. It could also be a stylized version of the sigil for Neptune, or it also is a little bit reminiscent of a symbol for the High Priestess in tarot that I've seen in a very simplistic deck of tarot cards. This symbol has been used before. The double M and the Iwaz, that's 100% for sure. Like, that is what that rune is. There's no going back on that. The next one, again, this is definitely a variation of the alchemical symbol for arsenic. Now, arsenic is symbolic of transformation, so its use here as a protection sigil could be protecting against, explicitly against, transformation spells or illusionary magic, which is funny because Agatha's the one that shows that off to Wanda by transforming the bug into a bird. So like, she has that ability to do that within this space, but that is not something that Wanda could do even if she wanted to in this space. So I thought that was kind of interesting. There's one more symbol that honestly, guys, I have no freaking clue. It looks like 2 slashes that kind of go off to the side with a little bit of a line through it. And I searched high and low. I couldn't find anything that remotely even looked like it. So this could honestly just be totally made up for the show. It looked cool though. It was interesting looking. Oddly enough, it even looks sort of like shorthand. Who knows? Who knows? Now we get on to Wanda's sigils. These were very interesting. I'm going to start with the first one that I'm not 100% sure on. It could go many different ways, but some of the symbology here and the connections are still interesting to think about. This is the one that shows up over Agatha's shoulder, and it looks like a Christian cross with an L shape connecting to it. Now, if you go back before Christianity, the cross itself, like this, used to just be a symbol for a dagger. Today, this symbol would be portrayed upside down and would be the symbol for the athame in modern witchcraft. If no one knows what an athame is, it actually is a knife that's used symbolically in rituals. And it basically is the idea of symbolizing the cutting away of negativity, negative thoughts, negative memories. And I thought that was sort of an interesting take if that's what the person who created these sigils for the show was, if they were going this way, even if it's the old style dagger. That's sort of an interesting concept to me. There's no corresponding rune that looks exactly like an L. Laguz would be the L, but it's not Laguz though in this case because it doesn't look anything like it. But if you just sort of connect them slightly better than they are, it's actually reminiscent of the symbol for Gemini, which a lot of people know is, again, twins. So this one was a little hard because I wasn't 100% sure what that the L connection was supposed to be. As far as the other sigil, though, this one is my favorite. It is so well done. I have to give 100% kudos to who created this sigil. This one is behind Wanda, and it's just so amazing. They did a great job here. It is the combination of the runes Algiz and Fehu. Algiz represents the divine might of the universe. It is also used in defense and warding. And here, with this combination with Fehu, which often just represents cattle, but I need to point out, and I'll be actually doing a whole study on runes for you guys, just so you know. Fehu usually represents cattle, but cattle was extremely important. Cattle was one of the only things that could be insured, for example. So it literally also represents moving property or just property. So the combination of these two runes together is Wanda saying, I am protecting and guarding this world. This is my property. And I'm doing it with the universal might, which we know from this show and from the movies is representative of one of the stones of power. So very, very cool. Awesome job, Marvel. I cannot stress enough how, as a heathen, I'm actually very happy with how they've incorporated a lot of runes, and they've done a really good job of creating sigils that are meaningful. And I've noticed too, they've also taken from different magical alphabets, not just the Germanic runes, but also angelic alphabet, alchemy, sigils. And this isn't the only time that they've done a really good job. I am probably going to do a very short segment for Patreon that talks about the runes being used specifically in the Thor movies. And my favorite being one of Loki's outfits has 2 runic symbols on it that I think are very telling of, well, he's not dead. That's my theory. I don't think, I think our old Loki is actually very much alive. And we'll see what happens. But maybe I'm wrong, but I just think it's really interesting how they've been giving us these little Easter eggs the whole time. And for those of us who are, quote unquote witchy, we get it, we see it. As soon as I saw that sigil behind Wanda, I was like ready to cry because I was like, oh my God, that's so freaking cool. Like somebody actually cared enough to do the research. Yeah. So there you go, guys. My little take on WandaVision, and Marvel doing a pretty damn good job so far with all those little details. I was originally going to save this for a Patreon only, but then I thought, you know what? I think it'd be a lot more fun for you guys to hear from me from the other side. It's a little bit more of the runes. And as I said, I am actually planning a whole series on runes that I'm going to release early to our Patreon subscribers. And then I'll be releasing it separately. So what you guys are going to get almost like a 3 to 4 month jump on that series before the regular public does. So anyway, hopefully that will get started up in October. And I hope you enjoyed today. And have a great weekend, and we'll see you in our regular episode next week. Have a great one. Stay spooky and don't die. But if you do, contact me through Sigils.